the topic related to local last mile infrastructure. And as I said, we have multiple technologies around last mile. The country is big, 100 plus million people, mostly young. There is a challenge of connecting all those people, being home, being at work, being in mobility. What do you think should be done? And from your point of view, in the previous discussion, the panelists mentioned about new entrants to the market, new operators. Will that solve the last mile infrastructure issue? What do you think?
Okay, let me start with this question. Before I talk about last mile, later we'll come back to core, but to put things into perspective, internet services infrastructure, we can put the backbone or the core as a center, and the access solutions at the edge. So there is some black box that connects the telecom infrastructure or the internet infrastructure across the nation, or when it's across the globe, we call it internet. From that backbone, the connectivity should reach to the end user, whether it is a home, a residence, or an enterprise, a government, university, or individual, the end user as a single individual. So that is the last mile, what we call last mile. How we provide connectivity to these end users. And in telecom infrastructure, we can generally categorize the last mile into two, as wired and wireless. So wired connectivity, the basic ones like the copper connectivity, ADSL, VDSL, the DSL version of technology is one of the first last mile technologies in Ethiopia. So as part of the expansion project, you have seen the presentation in the morning. Most of you, I hope, the era of this expansion, the catch-up era, which was 2008 up to 2016-17. There was a lot of access mile implementation from Ethio Telecom, from the funded project of Ethio Telecom, and that involves a lot of copper last mile implementations. And the other wired option is fiber to the building, fiber to the home, and I don't see that much is done from that point of view. Fiber is used for backbone and aggregation, but from access point of view, we don't see that much access, fiber connectivity as access, except for big enterprises. And from wireless point of view, there are a lot of options, including 4G, 5G, which is also a last mile wireless internet connectivity media technology. And the other fixed wireless options are also available. But still, our penetration rate is very low. That is unfortunate. And I see one of the main reasons is utilizing available infrastructure. That is one of the issues. It's not only not building the last mile infrastructure, but whatever is built, it is not used yet. There are a lot of fixed access, DSL, GPON, EPON, fiber infrastructures all over many cities, not only Addis Ababa, but many of major cities in Ethiopia. They have this last mile access, but the usage is very low. So the one step is building the infrastructure, but the other step is making it useful or accessible and available, economical to the end users. So I see a huge gap on that side. But besides that, now this is the past, but how about the future? Now that telecom space is being deregulated, private players are coming, so we have to see a lot of service providers deploying new access infrastructures and also expanding whatever is available as a point of entry. So that will enhance the availability, the price will go down, it will be economically acceptable for many people to have an internet service to their home, to their offices. So that will, I hope that will accelerate the accessibility and the penetration of internet to every home and every business. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other take about last mile? Yes.
Yeah. This is Dawit. So, as Meried indicated, we have wireless, which we can classify into two: mobile wireless as well as fixed wireless, and wired infrastructure, which includes copper as well as fiber. Now, from a fundamental technology perspective, wireless is a limited resource. And it has to be a limited public resource that has to be allocated by regulators for specific purpose, for specific utilization in a specific area. So because of that, there are fundamental physical laws that limits the bits per hertz or per bandwidth of a specific spectrum, and that limits the total capacity of wireless. However, wireless has a huge advantage. That advantage is with wireless you can be mobile, you can move around with a wireless connectivity, and with it's also faster to provision the last connectivity of wireless. Is just giving a device. So in some cases, if it is fixed wireless, it's going to be pointing the antenna to the right direction. So it gives you the speed of connectivity. So when I say speed, how fast you'll be able to get the service. It gives you also flexibility that it is mobile, but it is inherently limited on from a capacity perspective. It is more expensive to get a certain amount of bandwidth over wireless than a wired infrastructure, and at a given technology stage, you'll get a much more higher capacity on a wired, particularly fiber, than wireless. When it comes to the wired infrastructure, we have a choice of fiber and copper. It used to be that copper used to be a good alternative, but right now with this, at this current technology, copper is poor in terms of quality, lower capacity, and more expensive. So I don't think anyone who builds a new last mile will build copper at this point. So fiber is a right way to go. There are multiple ways to do fiber, but fiber to the home is the right way to go to building the last mile. So in the short term, if somebody wants to provide service quickly, wireless may be the right way to go. But in the long term, it takes time to build out, dig and build fiber, but that's the right way to go for a long-term solution.
Thank you. As far as last mile connectivity infrastructure is concerned, I want to know how is the demand side. Probably it's not a technical question, but in terms of mobile, is it easy to get a mobile or buy a mobile, or is it at the reach of everyone? Or is it easy to get a laptop so that the demand is as well there to build that infrastructure?
I'll take that one. Demand is a result of a couple of things. One, are there applications that require bandwidth demand, and nowadays almost everybody uses video, so there's demand for bandwidths. And the quality of the video that you get depends on the quality of connectivity that you have. So the better connectivity you have, better quality you get. Now, the second aspect, the most important aspect, is price. If price is expensive, you may not even use it. Even if you use it, you'll be using a lower quality, a lower bandwidth, and your experience will be lower. So demand is driven by pricing as well as availability of the service, as well as applications. From application perspective, in this video day, there's a significant demand. We just need to bring down pricing for higher capacity last mile connectivity low enough so that there is significant demand.
To add one point on this one of the driving factors for usage of internet is e-commerce. So online buying and selling things and getting services online. This drives a lot of demand. So in Ethiopia, one of the limiting factor is the e-commerce side of it is not it is at a very infancy stage. So we don't see much online apps, mobile apps, and also service providers who sells or do their services online. So that part is also being limited so far, and hopefully with the growth of the internet access and the price is going down, that part of the market will grow and entrepreneurs will develop applications, the business community will start to use internet as a media of commerce, and that will also drive further demand in the future.
Okay, so probably two questions about last mile, and then probably we can ask if there is any particular question in the audience. One is about right of way. When you want to develop, when you want to deploy fiber, you need to ask an authorization to the regulator for the right of way. If you want to cross a road, if you want to put your fiber on electric poles, how easy is it to get that kind of authorization? The second thing is, if someone has already laid fiber towards a certain neighborhood, can someone take advantage of it in terms of infrastructure sharing? So those two questions: right of way, how easy is it, and infrastructure sharing, is it something that is already envisioned in this current market?
I'll start with the last one. With infrastructure sharing, it means it's at different levels. One is it's important to share infrastructure such as poles or ducts, so that instead of digging a new one, you can utilize those existing ones. It is good for the infrastructure owner because they will be leasing it. So I think that's going to be a business transaction. Like, for example, if somebody wants to lay fiber over electric pole, you have to work with the electric company to come up with a deal that will be beneficial to both parties. In terms of building the last mile, what are in terms of sharing the fiber itself, it depends how the fiber is structured. For example, if it is a PON type of infrastructure, it is very difficult to share between providers. But you can have multiple fibers in the same duct, and then you can use the different fibers for different service providers. But for a specific fiber, if it is a PON infrastructure, it's difficult to share. If it is a point-to-point type of infrastructure, then it requires technologies that may be expensive to share the same fiber for multiple purposes from a last mile perspective. For long haul, that's possible, and usually that's done. But for last mile, the equipment that will enable you to share it is more expensive to do.
Okay. Are there any questions in the audience?
Okay, thank you. My name is Zelalem. I work for the Computer Science Department of Assefa University. In addition to the drafted agenda items that you already explained to us earlier, I want to add one more item. For a country of Ethiopia's size, we know that the functional literacy level of Ethiopian is very low. I mean, the people who are able to write and write in Amharic script are nearly around 40%. So we have a big challenge in terms of digital literacy. Together, a few colleagues from the community, I established a generation panel, worked on the development of level generation rules for Ethiopic script. Now Ethiopic script is part of, so I can have it myself, yeah. So Ethiopic script is part of the identity space. So my question is, I would like to direct it to Dawit. How does the DNS market, the domain name market looks like in Ethiopia? Do you know that Ethiopic script is already part of the identity space? Around 7 languages are already included in the identity space. That means domain names in Amharic, in Tigrinya, in Tigray, and another 4 languages are available. So are you aware of these developments in the identity space? That's one question. The second question is, Meried, earlier you explained to us that when it comes to the deployment of the last mile infrastructure access, relatively there has been progress over the last few years. But you mentioned one critical problem, the effective use of these critical resources which have been deployed with expensive amount of money for a government operating in a very restricted fiscal budget. I see the challenge is, we have the infrastructure, but people are unable to use the infrastructure because most of contents available online are in foreign language. And I said earlier, the functional literacy level in Ethiopia is minimum. So when it comes to the people proficiency in using ASCII scripts or English scripts is too low. So I see this is also another challenge which contributes to the underutilization of the infrastructure which has been deployed with this huge sum of money. So how can, is that I advise this panel to contemplate deeply on issues beyond access. When I say beyond access, earlier you mentioned also telecommunication subscription fee in Ethiopia is costly. That's one thing. But the big challenge is most probably 60 or 70% of Ethiopian population is unable to use foreign scripts. So how this challenge can be navigated? As a professional, what can we contribute for the policy-making process, as well as in the innovation of solutions? Thank you.
Thank you. If someone answer that, because it is beyond a technical aspect of the last mile, probably shortly someone can answer quickly, but we have to move to other topics because it's a little bit of the main technical aspects.
It has also a technical aspect. I said we formulated a level generation rules for Ethiopic script for validating domain names, meaning Ethiopic script is part of the root zone now. People can apply for domain names in Amharic, in Tigrinya, in Silte, and so on and so on. So this has also technical elements to some extent. Okay, so if Dawit has.
So from a domain perspective, right now the country level top domain name .et is managed by Ethio Telecom. So I don't have that data, whether they have demand for Ethiopic scripts or how many domain names they are basically hosting right now. So I wish Ethio Telecom would have been here to answer those questions.
Okay, so I have tried to contact them because I was unable to push them to apply for Ethiopic domain names in Ethiopic. I think ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, they are ready to offer them the country code top level domain name IDN for free. But I myself also tried to no avail. We didn't get any response from them. Okay, so I didn't know even that there is an ISP like you. So had I known this before, I would have contacted you. So.
Yeah, so the management of the top level domain name, that might change because now new operators are coming. So I don't think it may not stay with Ethio Telecom, but right now it is Ethio Telecom that manages .et. On the literacy, I think the good thing is some of the devices allow you to use technology even with little literacy, and you can use that technology to enhance literacy as well.
Okay. Dawit, you mentioned something about expensive devices. I want to know what is how heavy is that argument is in terms of deploying a last mile infrastructure when the devices are expensive. Do you contemplate a kind of incentive from the government as a way to promote the last mile infrastructure?
So even the technology is not, usually it's not common to use the last mile fiber to share the last mile fiber, but what you can do is you can share ducts. So if somebody, if one operator builds the last mile, usually you'll be building ducts and trenches. If you have big enough duct, somebody else can lay fiber over there and provision services. So and the most expensive part is actually the physical work, not the fiber itself.
Okay. So allow me to move forward. So now we're going into discussion about the core, backbone, and optical infrastructure. Probably for those who don't know, the last mile is what connects to the end user. It can be wireless with my phone, it can be wireless with my laptop at home, with fiber, it can be 5G, 4G, that's last mile. Now we are moving towards the network with core, backbone, and optical infrastructure within the country. The obvious question is there enough backbone infrastructure within, not metropolitan probably, but even beyond in the other regions? Are all the regions connected? And if not, what needs to be done?
Let me take this one. Actually, I was a consultant to Ethio Telecom during that era of catch-up. So I was the one doing the design for the national backbone, which you saw on the picture in the morning. Mm-hmm. And it really was a big step for the country to connect all major regions of the country with fiber, with a lot of fiber backbone and with a lot of bandwidth. So all major cities, there was core aggregation, and with standard design, they were interconnected with high bandwidth core capacity. At the time, it was 2007, 2008. That was the initiation of the project. So it was high capacity backbone to carry not just internet, but also the mobile. So that's why it was called NGN, Next Generation Network. So it's a unified network that carries all communications, voice, data, in an IP format. So even the fixed phone, when you make a call from Addis Ababa to cities, to Arbaminch or to Bekele, it goes through this IP backbone. So it uses an MPLS, a protocol called MPLS. So the backbone connectivity is there with a single provider, which is Ethio Telecom. But from the backbone, my real concern is the access. So even if you have a big backbone, if you don't distribute it to the users, so most of the time the backbone bandwidth, when you monitor it, it is very low, 20, 30, 40% maximum. So the backbone is not well utilized because we haven't distributed the access to enough users. So the connectivity is there. I'm not saying it is enough, but the basic connectivity and the basic backbone has been there since the last 5-6 years.
What about dark fiber? Is it possible for me in Addis to lease a dark fiber link to the north or to any region?
Oh, okay. So right now, no, right? But with the new deregulation, that's going to be the case. So EAP, which is a power company, the power distribution and generation part of the power company, they have fibers and they're ready to start leasing. They just need to get that license. So you'll be able to lease fibers from them. I believe also Ethio Telecom plans to lease some of their fibers. So the good thing about the fiber is usually when you deploy fiber cable, it has multiple fiber cores, in some cases 24, in some cases 48 cores, and usually you need 2 cores to do most of the services, so the remaining will be used. An operator may use 2 or 3 or 4, 2 or 4 or 6 cores, but there will be enough additional cores available for other operators to utilize. So in addition to the Ethio Telecom fiber, that's mostly, I believe, underground, right? Underground, you have the EEP fiber. So the long haul, so in terms of fiber, you have long haul, middle haul, and then the last mile. So the middle haul being mostly the metro area. I think there is in Addis, I think there's sufficient metro area fiber. How it's utilized, that's a different thing. Last mile, there's very little, but that needs to be done. Long haul is well established. There are multiple options. There will be you'll need some additional links to increase high availability, but there is sufficient fiber cores to do the capacity. And the other aspect is fiber capacity. A single fiber core capacity increases because of, again, Moore's law. That increases over time. Every couple of years, it at least doubles every. So it is right now you can achieve up to 24, 26 terabits per second on a single fiber. So with for the long haul. For the last mile, that's expensive to do because of the equipment required. So there is enough capacity from a backbone perspective, but I think the major one is going to be the middle haul, the metro area. Outside Addis, I'm not sure how good it is. Probably Meried has some idea, but that's the area that needs development, and obviously the last mile.
Let me add some points. I have a challenge also here. We have to really see the existing situation. There are also, of course, a lot of fiber infrastructure built by Ethio Telecom and EEP, but they have to really work on the optimization and the reliability of the fibers. We are the end user from both sectors, but they are not providing us really the reliable network from the Ethio Telecom as well the EEP side, and it has to be optimized. For example, if you need some mesh network from Ethio Telecom side, it's very difficult for them to provide us. So even the existing fiber infrastructure or the core backbone should have to be optimized from both sectors.
All right. Any question from the audience as far as yes?
Okay, thank you so for the chance. My name is Surafil from Addis Institute of Technology. I would like to speak in Amharic. So, my technology.
My question is as follows. The technology is expanding. IoT is there. 4.0 is there. There's artificial intelligence. So are we really ready to use this infrastructure? We should know that we need to do many things to improve the connectivity and the expansion of the network. Sometimes we can find areas even in Addis that are not even connected and do not have the necessary infrastructure. The internet rate has decreased over the past days. If you go to areas like CMC and Summit, the internet connection is really poor. So how can we benefit from this service, whereas the quality is poor? The same goes in other areas of Addis. So what is Ethio Telecom doing in this aspect? We have also heard that 5G is about to come, but nothing has been done in IV6 and other research works. Thank you.
Respond on behalf of Ethio Telecom, because we don't officially represent Ethio Telecom. But from technology point of view, as I and Dawit were explaining, the real problem is on the last mile. So these messages, they were part of this 2010-2011 project, nearly 19 years. And they were not utilized at the time for many reasons, and they are not enough. And the plan was done 2009-10. So the population, the city in the last 10 years expanded tremendously. So when you plan an access network, a last mile. You take where people live, how many users will I get in this place. So you put a capacity based on the data you have at the time. So it should be expanded based on usage, based on the expansion of a city. I don't think that is done properly in the last 10 years. So we see a lot of issues where there are new expansion areas, residential areas, and where there are already congested metropolitan area like Bole and the other places, where there are new buildings, many number of users. So if you don't expand the last mile based on the expansion of the city, based on the demand, of course there will be congestion and you will not get the quality of service you expect. So I hope with the new deregulation of ISPs, new ISP players in the market, these are the opportunities that we'll take. We'll take this as an opportunity as a private player. We go where there is a demand. So we'll not wait for Ethio Telecom. We'll deploy access resources. So this will improve in a very short period of time, I believe so. It is not up to Ethio Telecom only to address these issues after this.
So a follow-up question to that actually is, you mentioned that the problem is the access, the last mile, the access. So does that mean there should be no investment as far as the backbone is concerned, or the investment that has been done in the past is enough?
Of course, it will not be enough, but it is enough to start. To start. At this time, as an ISP, so far. Let me explain about us. IE Network as a company, our main focus has been on the enterprise solutions, like serving banks, universities, and government. But we also have the ISP license. Actually, they call it virtual ISP license for the last 2 years. We haven't started operation because the virtual ISP license limits you to only use Ethio Telecom as a retailer. You can only take the wholesaler. So we are just retailers from Ethio Telecom. So all the quality of service, all the issues that you take from Ethio Telecom will be yours. So that's why we refrain from coming into the market and wait for the full deregulation, which is happening now. So at this time, as a starting point, we don't have to build full backbone. We can still start with available backbone providers. One is Ethio Telecom, the other is this electric utility provider which has a fiber. But through time we can also build a backbone or aggregation for our own use. So to begin with, we can use existing infrastructure, but in the future there will be a need for expansion of backbone.
Okay. One on the first row, and then there is one in the back.
Okay. So the one thing is the translation doesn't work. So you would actually get the other room interpreter. So just a note. Let me speak in Amharic so that the audience can see, and then I translate it. So Meried,
Meried noted this engine idea and I was participating in the project Meried mentioned. I know that the technology is very expensive and requires the installation of complicated networks. So it's a very expensive technology. So concerning access, I would say that rural or community networks use a system that is similar to ISP. For instance, for 1,000 or 10,000 people, we would need access. If in Addis we want to install the system for 10,000 people, and if the project is funded, the expansion in Deredawa would require a communication network that is from Addis to Deredawa. For the time being, as Dawit mentioned, the leased line would be very expensive, even if the prices are recently reduced. This type of connections are very expensive unless other service providers share the expense. In other countries, the wave is only sold, for instance, if a strand of fiber supports 19 terabytes. So this system can be used to provide 1 or 100 gigabytes. So how do you analyze the situation? Maybe Dawit's company is a bit advanced, but have you ever considered this type of
a means to go beyond the wholesale? Oh, you didn't get that. Okay, so it does work, right? Okay, that's good.
Okay, greetings. My question is also around this connectivity, but moving a little bit towards the routing aspect. I'm not quite sure what the status is, but perhaps Meried knows more, or Dawit can also elaborate. For traffic generated within Ethiopia, is there, in your view now, proper routing that it doesn't have to necessarily go and create latency by, going around the world a couple of times before coming back here? Is that a configuration challenge or a technical equipment challenge? And how do you foresee it, if it's not resolved, being resolved? Thank you.
I think it's a good transition to the next point, which is local internet exchange and regional and global internet. Probably you can discuss more in that line.
So with the first one, connectivity between, if an ISP has an ISP island here in Addis and then another ISP island in Radar, then there are two options. Currently with the VISP license, everything goes to Ethio Telecom core, so there's not an issue per se, but you'll get capacity dedicated for that location. You'll get a capacity dedicated for this location going into the internet. So it doesn't work. It works, but it's not really efficient. But long term, obviously, you would expect. Usually, it is a combination of, you may have a metro area provider that will get you to a backbone provider, and then it will hand it over to another metro area provider in Radar, and then hand it over to the ISP. That's a typical scenario. And the way that connectivity is provided, it could be a layer 2 VPN circuit with the same capacity. It could be a Lambda service, which is a wavelength service with the same capacity, depending on what's being offered between the service providers, and they have different characteristics in terms of latency and timing and other considerations. But right now, even if you get that service, you'll be getting from Ethio Telecom. You can get a point-to-point layer 2 VPN circuit from here to Radar. They'll charge you almost the same amount as going to the internet. So that's possible, not Lambda service, but point-to-point layer 2 VPN service. I believe there's something in the pipeline for Lambda service for the enterprise customers, but I may be wrong. So this is coming from some of the enterprise customers. There was some discussion on getting Lambda service within Ethio Telecom network. In terms of routing, I'm not sure. So if the content is here in Ethiopia, hosted on Ethio Telecom IP address or on our IP address, which is advertised to Ethio Telecom, it will stay in Ethiopia. If the content is hosted somewhere outside, then it has to go get the traffic from outside and come back. The routing issue will come into play when you have independent providers. If they don't have a local inter-exchange point, then they all have to go somewhere outside and then come back, or they may have to have a direct peer-to-peer exchange. Both of them are possible. Of course, going outside will increase latency, and a lot of applications are latency sensitive nowadays, so that's not advisable. But it's good to have inter-exchange point here, and then the content provider will peer with the inter-exchange point, and the service provider will peer with the inter-exchange point. The transit provider will also be peering there, and then the local traffic will remain local. And it's also a good ecosystem even to get transit service and other services.
Yeah, before you go, Ben, you want to say something?
I understand your question. I can answer that one. So, may I answer? Yeah. Regarding routing, let's. I think your question is the content is not in Ethiopia. The content is somewhere else, but we have to go there through fast paths, which is normally Ethio Telecom has upstream providers, internet providers, multiple of them. Different through Djibouti side is another one, through South Sudan is another one, through Kenya there is another one, there is a satellite provider, all connected, all upstream internet providers. Some of them are tier 1, some of them are not. So when it is a tier 1 global internet provider, they have the whole internet database. So they can route, they can use the best route to reach faster. But if the upstream provider is not a tier 1 or doesn't have all the internet database, it may take you through longer paths to reach on the same destination. So there's a protocol called BGP. So we use BGP. The configuration issues were I'm not sure on the current operation, but when I was there was a lot of configuration optimizations to make the paths as short as possible.
The question.
A follow-up question?
Just clarification.
Yes.
Okay. So I think part of it they answered for me. But the other part is, for example, right, if I am a content company and I would like to subsidize the consumption of that content by my customers, at the moment I'm not sure if Ethiotel can differentiate where the source of that traffic is, because if they could price it accordingly. So if there's, for example, a lot of idle network locally and I can host it here, they can say, if you host it in this idle thing that I'm not making a lot of money on, I can give you a discounted price versus if you host it someplace else where they have to also pay for internet, right? So do they have that equipment, I think it's called perimeter something, that allows them to know if this traffic is sourced, the source is locally or outside?
So is that differentiation for the end user or for the content provider? For the content provider. So currently we have a hosting service as well. So we are actually the only hosting service other than Ethio Telecom. So we host it on Ethio Telecom data center. And so our agreement is still that because it is beneficial for them, because whenever somebody accesses the content, it's actually paying them for the bandwidth. Like if you are accessing using a mobile device, you are actually paying for the bandwidth. So it's good for them that there is a local content, because it will not utilize their international capacity, which hosts them. It's local. It is the user gets higher experience. So that actually encourages them to use more content, which actually generates more revenue for Ethio Telecom, because that they give us a good option, and we pass that to the content owners. So we just provide hosting. So we have a virtual based hosting. We do provide that service, and we host some of the big content providers, like the media companies. For example, Fana is hosted here locally on our hosting services, and we do a lot of video for that as well. So they do differentiate for the content providers, not for content providers, but if you are providing a hosting service, they do that right now. I'm not sure if they would extend that, but they do that right now, and it is a good thing for network operators to do that, because they will not pay. Otherwise, if it is hosted outside, they have to pay for the transit service to get that content back here, in addition to the bad experience that the user experiences.
Probably to talk about a little bit about the routing as well. One example is Nigeria, which is a very huge country, and they have multiple exchange, not only in Lagos, which is near the shore and the ocean, but as well within the country up north. So if I take an example of Tigray region, so if you have, let's say, 2 or 3 community networks within the Tigray region, the traffic between those networks in Tigray should not come to any other region before going back there, as trying as much as possible to be efficient. Or from one region to the north to the one region into the south, it normally, logically, should pass probably through all this. But from within regions, traffic within regions should stay in the region. Then that's the reason why exchange points are there. A big country like, me personally, a big country like Ethiopia would not have one exchange. It should have multiple exchanges depending on the demand, where people are, and concentration of population, and so on and so forth. So probably going away from, I think the exchange point we've kind of, we are moving away from that, and then for the region, from the regional perspective and the global internet, you mentioned that there are 4 exit routes. I mean, Djibouti, South Sudan, Kenya, and some satellite as well. So do you think the country is as well taking advantage of, let's say, content that is probably available in Djibouti? Is there any kind of analysis or study that has been done if there is some kind of content that is available, not in Ethiopia, but just nearby? Or is there any content that is fetched in Kenya or in Djibouti, in the nearby region?
I doubt that. I don't have the latest data, but as far as I remember, it was just transit connectivity as an internet provider. If there is content in Kenya, of course, because the IP address is in Kenya, we will fetch it, because that's the Kenyan telecom provider will advertise the IP address of that content, so we can fetch it. But the discussion was not from content point of view; it was purely from connectivity point of view.
So from the Facebook perspective, and I guess from a CDN perspective generally, if we've got, we try and deliver the best performance of our products to the people using them. So what that practically means is, if, let's say, Ethio Telecom had an upstream who had connectivity to us in our Mombasa POP, we might serve that traffic there back to in-country. Clearly, we would still like to do stuff in-country, but, you know, the market needs to develop to the right space. But, you know, other CDNs, where they've built their infrastructure, you know, we'll always try and serve the traffic as near to the end user as possible, to kind of echo the point you're making.
So looking at our traffic, it appears that Facebook and YouTube are actually cached here, I believe.
Yeah, we can't talk about where our caching equipment's located, but maybe.
Yeah. So because we don't see significant traffic going outside for Facebook, but we see and YouTube that some Google traffic, but not YouTube. We have a significant traffic going for about 10% going Netflix. Going out, so you know those are some of the things that can be cached locally and improve performance, but it looks like Facebook and YouTube are locally cached.
Yeah, so I was going to mention it earlier. Facebook, you know, from our infrastructure perspective, we have different ways we serve our content. We have what's known as a POP, and that can serve all Facebook traffic, and the nearest POP to here is Mombasa, and that's because that market, as we well know, is more developed. We have also our in-network caches, what we call FNA, or Facebook Network Appliance, and we can put those inside providers' networks where maybe there isn't a POP nearby, and they serve a subset of Facebook content, and that's Facebook product family, so Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and that's the pictures and video, and that makes up 60 to 80% of the traffic. So potentially, if you're seeing something like that could potentially explain it. Other CDNs have the same kind of idea as well.
And in terms of CDN, I think I believe Ethio Telecom gets services from peers directly at Djibouti data center, which most likely will be fetching data from Akamai there from Djibouti data center.
Yeah, those are some of the ways to optimize traffic distribution. The nearest place you can get that and fetch it from, the better it is for the end user. So from a web hosting and locally web hosted services, what kind of infrastructure needs to be improved, or are people happy with what is available? Or let me ask the question this way: if there is innovation today, someone thinks about something very bright and interesting for the population, will that innovator have ease of hosting that in Ethiopia?
Regarding hosting services, one of the issues, I think, the question about Ethiopic language is related to this topic. Most of our content, still we are not creating content in our language. Most of the things are still in English. So the internet, that part must be encouraged. We have to encourage. I know there was a lot of initiatives. There were a lot of initiatives from Ministry of ICT, MCIT, to develop to encourage local content development. But I don't see we made significant progress. So while we have a lot of local contents, then the issue of where to host the content will come. Even for contenters which are already in the market, yes, we don't have enough data centers or hosting providers that can serve this big market. There are only few hosting services in the country. That is a limiting factor at this time. But with this deregulation, I believe also these ISPs, they will also provide hosting services. So we'll have a lot of local content providers and local content hosting services in the near future.
And probably a follow-up question on that before someone else says something. In our country, in Rwanda, one of the challenge we've identified as a blocking factor to local web hosting services, content hosted within the country, is the cost of power. And we had a discussion with the regulator. We said, for data center and web hosting facilities, let's have a separate cost for power. Do you have the same problem? Or the power here is okay?
Power here is cheaper.
Here power is cheaper.
Yeah.
So no problem about that. Okay. Someone wants to say something?
Okay, let me add something about the hosting issues. By the way, we are providing hosting for the research and education sectors. Somehow we started to provide last year for some of the university. As per our study, almost previously 80% of the universities host their website outside of Ethiopia, somewhere in Australia or somewhere in the continent. So we believe that the local hosting should be there, and we are crafting some policy, at least the university, either for the local hosting provider, or they have to host in our data center, in Ethernet data center. So we have also seen that we are significantly generating some traffic, by the way, by hosting the local web hosting here in Ethiopia. Because you see, if you are hosting here, means when the internet shutdown from Ethio Telecom side happens, so that at least the local web hosted will work here. And some of the actually emails is hosted in the public cloud, but the local hosting, the web hosting is provided here. Not only that one, we are also providing some of the hosting facility, like the content institutional repository, maybe the national repository is hosted in our data center. Just a few points for Facebook. I think we were also negotiating with them. Facebook and Google should provide us the POPs, not the content distribution in Ethiopia. We didn't have that traffic, but we had similar experience with Kenya. They can significantly decrease their traffic, like 6 GB up to 10 GB of their international connectivity, because they are hosting the POPs in their data center. But in Ethio Telecom, I think they are using Akamai, some content distribution network, to cache. Instead of caching, it's better to have the POPs here in Ethiopia. I think we have to start the discussion later, maybe privately.
So, thanks for the feedback. So a few points I'd like to follow up on. First one is Facebook's product family is exclusively served off the Facebook CDN now. We don't party CDNs. We have done in the past, but we don't anymore. So it's not Akamai. For us to bring content closer, and this echoes what you said, and I totally support the more local content, but sitting as the non-local, I'll talk about the international piece. We need to see a greater ecosystem develop in Ethiopia, and I think we're starting that process with the kind of bringing in the competition that's talked about. But for me, an ecosystem means a number of different things. We'll have carrier-neutral data centers. So these are, independent bodies, operating facilities that's the same price for all of us to connect into that building. Some of the challenges sometimes if you have a facility that's owned by a certain carrier, then it can be more expensive. I'm not saying that happens here, I'm just saying what I've seen. We did touch on it, and I'll mention it again, an internet exchange or internet exchanges. We want to keep traffic local. If the 5 of us started an ISP each, and we won't rely on an EFO, if we didn't connect in country, all of our traffic would be exchanged out of country, and that's bad tromboning, that's more expensive. So we know you need an IX to keep it local. And then these ecosystems starts to bring greater developments to build a greater community focused in kind of peering and transit, and then that brings kind of training and education, and this is what we've been doing in other markets. So we mentioned Nigeria earlier. We support NGNOG, and we've been going there and taking part in their workshops to kind of facilitate the training of the people there.
I think it's a good transition that you're talking about skills. So in terms of skills, engineers, yes, we have a last mile, yes, we have a backbone, but we need engineers that are skilled to take care of that infrastructure. How can you address that in Ethiopia?
Before that, let me
you can go ahead.
So in terms of hosting, it's important. The ecosystem is important, particularly inter-exchange as well as data centers. A hosting provider probably would focus on providing hosting instead of building a data center, and you have that food chain as well. So the other important aspect is because of 5G, because of Internet of Things, there is a significant pressure in terms of reducing latency, which means that will encourage a lot of local hosting, because without that you will not be able to achieve the latency. So there is going to be application demand or demand driven by application that will force data centers from big, huge data centers into micro data centers, going into regionals, even below regionals. So there will be significant push towards smaller data centers that will encourage hosting locally in Ethiopia and across the regions here.
Okay, thank you. So we are moving. So the question was about skills. What needs to be done? What is the current status as far as skills development is concerned? How do people learn routing, security, internet security, and so on and so forth? And then what needs to be done so that the required number of engineers are at the level that is required for this country?
I think let me address this one because it's directly concerning our Minister of Science and Higher Education, which is mandated to provide training, skilling, upskilling and reskilling of the people's youngsters especially. So previously we didn't have that much policy or framework to provide skill training for youngsters, even for the university, the formal policy or regulatory environment. But now we are really working digital country action plan, we call it. We are working with the World Bank 10-year strategic plan to provide to graduate a skilled trend which will be served for this fourth industrial revolution era. There are some initiatives from our side. There are some initiatives. We call it the University Industry Linkage. So the University Industry Linkage in ICT is to open an ICT academy in the universities and some of the TVET sectors. So for example, we have an agreement with Cisco to open a Cisco academy in most or all higher education sectors, and they are providing skill training like CCNA, CCNP, this routing. We are also took an initiatives. We had been working for the last couple of years with Afrinic also to provide routing training, for example, BGP for universities. We were more focusing actually for the higher education sectors, but we believe that the graduates, the graduates came from higher education or TVETs. So we are opening up an ICT academy, Cisco ICT Academy, which provides skill training mainly for networking, for network engineers. We are also opening up an ICT academy for TVET sector. We have been trying for the 9 TVET sectors. They call it Polytechnic College, so we are planning to expand. We have also an agreement with Microsoft, IBM. We are recently discussing with VMware to open a VMware Academy. We had an Oracle Academy. We had Microsoft Academy. So all these giant vendors are providing skill training, but we believe that it's not enough. So it's more focusing on the graduates. So we have to think also people who is graduated from the university and seeking a jobs. For that, at least we are working with Job Creation Commission on reskilling and upskilling of their graduates who is seeking a jobs. So last time our delegates, a delegate from the government office from Mint, Job Commission, Minister of Finance had visited Silicon Valley to discuss with giant tech providers, tech vendors. So somehow we agreed to provide, for example, with Cisco, within the coming 10 years, they plan to provide 100,000. You see, Ethiopia is now following the digital skill. This telecom market is now liberalized, open. So we have to really fill the skill gaps of the country. I mean, we are creating a jobs, plus we are providing skilled citizens for those who are who want to provide a service for this digital economy. So we agreed with Cisco to provide 100,000 graduates. They are promising to provide us a skill training for the next 10 years. VMware also promising. Microsoft with 5 years, they are promising us to provide 10,000 skill training for not only for the university student, by the way, for any citizen who want to participate on this. So you see, this is a government initiative, but we are also working with the private ICT association sectors, the private sector and GIZ. We are now working on the digital skill framework. So we have to set the minimum digital skill framework to be employable in any sectors. So there are a lot of initiatives from the government sides just to address this issue.
Any question in the audience? Yes. About skills, and probably we can even move towards R&D.
Okay, thank you. My name is Bekele. I have 2 questions.
Short and concise.
Yeah, number 1, now he was now talking about the training. But the problem is the training affordable? How many Ethiopians are able to pay the fee? Even most of Ethiopians want to be certified. But because of financial, and since they are most of them are unaffordable, they couldn't attain. The other thing, we are always talking about ISP, internet service providers. Whatsoever whether we are using optics or broadband, that's always we are talking about from the ISP side. How about from the end user sides? How many of the end users are considering their number of users, standardized equipment, and even there are also lack of expertise. How many of the end users are using professionals, expertise for configuration and other support? Thank you.
So, question about affordability and the training from the end user side. I have another question, but I think first address those 2, and then I will ask my question after that.
So he's talking, I believe he's talking about the certification, the certification fee, professional certification fee from the vendors. Namely, we are focusing to provide skill training freely for citizens. You see, for example, if you open Oracle Academy, it's free in education sector. Cisco, there is a minimal amount of fee, but we are really considering the government should have to be subsidized. The training should be free, but the certification should be paid by, definitely, for those who can pay. Otherwise, maybe the companies or individuals, but we will not cover the government. In any country experience, the government will not cover your certification, professional certification fee. But in addition to your formal educations, we open up the ICT Academy to provide free training, free skill training for the youngsters.
Yeah, let me mention the role of private sector because it's very important. We cannot expect the government to do all the training because from my experience, we hire mainly fresh graduates, and we spend the first 6 months, 1 year training them and giving them training, self-trainings, on-job trainings, classroom trainings. Then we cover the certification payments for our staff. So the private sector is also the main player to upskill those who come from school, because we hire IT graduates, computer science graduates, electrical engineering graduates, but when they come to work, they know nothing about what they're going to do. It's just because they have the degree, we onboard them, we train them from scratch. So whatever they are going to deliver in the future is from the training they got, not from the school, the degree they got. So private sector should also be part of this enablement.
I don't know if in the room someone has attended a NOG, AFNOG. Oh, yes, one. Only one person? Two? Okay. So probably one of the things that's really helped, as far as the African continent is concerned, there is a NOG happening once a year, and someone can Google that, afnog.org, and they have multiple tracks. System administration, scalable infrastructure, routing, advanced routing, and so on and so forth. I think that's one of the message probably we can share. And Nisha, do you want to say something about NOGs and how people can take advantage of locally organized training?
I wasn't planning on speaking, but since you asked. Hello, my name is Nishal Govardhan. I do lots of things, but one of the things that I do is I help countries, I help economies start network operator groups, and we've done that very successfully in many countries in Africa. I want to use your neighbor as an example. Sudan, you're immediately connected to Sudan. Sudan has challenges of its own, as you might imagine, challenges that you don't have. And one thing that I love that the Sudanese have been able to do really, really well is to educate people on a almost informal level inside their communities. So these are engineering folk, operations folk, people that have worked in things like the NREN, people that have worked in service providers that have gone outside the country, gotten training, and then come back and started what they call SDNOG, the Sudan Network Operators Group. And what they do, if you follow their NOG, is that they have weekly training sessions on some things that you might think are really trivial, on how the internet works, how internet governance might work, how DNS works, which is something that I guess most of us take for granted, but not a lot of technical people necessarily understand. And they've been doing this very, very successfully. Probably definitely the most successful NOG in Africa, if you ask me. And I think that is a fantastic model for what you could be doing here in Ethiopia, because you have a large population that doesn't necessarily have easy access to be able to get into Addis, and the opportunity to have training done in different cities by smart folk. And I've been to Ethiopia many times, I've taught in your country many times, so I know you have good people. Localized training done by smart people that have been trained and have been taught how to deliver this is, for me, the way that you could be building and you should be building moving forward. Because the solutions that you want to build as you grow your internet economy are not about how do I resell Ethiopia telecom services. That's absolutely not it. The solutions that you build are not how do I get access to Facebook or Google or Akamai. Your users are going to be using this, of course. But the solutions that you need to build have to be uniquely local solutions for you. That is what is going to make your economy grow. You can't do that if, well, you're always importing skills from the outside and you're always importing products from the rest of the world. I could go on, but Ghislain would want me to not speak more than I can. But if you are interested, then ISOC does have really good programs to support NOGs. You can speak to the ISOC team. You could speak to Ghislain. You can come speak to me, and we can help you figure out how to get started. Because really, I do believe that that's the most sustainable way for you to move forward.
Thank you, Nishal. Robert? Okay. So probably 2 interventions, and then probably we can wrap up with R&D. How can we improve R&D within the country as far as these technical aspects are concerned? Yes? Short and quickly, if you can.
Yeah, I just want to comment regarding the capacity issue. Of course, what we have to consider is that capacity is an issue at a country level due to the liberalization and something like that. Of course, we have people who have graduated from the university, but what we need is we have to optimize these people, whether they're capable in sense of liberalization or something like that. So we cannot be exhaustive now. What we do is just we need a platform and we need a framework. So as people has to be skilled and to be some international companies, telecom companies, they want very skilled people, skilled capacity. So how the government or private sector can be capable on that aspect. That is an issue that we have to take. So regarding the existing situation, of course, we have been in one monopoly company, Ethio Telecom, or the telecommunications, the routing, everything is being handled by the monopoly company. So we are saying that even though we have people, we have graduates, the question is, are we capable to handle every licensee or any data center hosting, and every issues are able to be handled by the existing capacity. So the government has to think of it and the private sector has to think of it. So we have to agree with some points that a platform or a framework that is being used to skill all Ethiopians, all Ethiopian graduate or young or anyone else to be implementing this system is much more important. That's my comment I want to consider here.
Okay, thank you very much. There was another intervention in the first? No? Okay. Yes, Robert, yes.
So this is going to be a bit more provocative question. So in my experience, I've been working, I did work here for a while and I studied here. So there was a trend of focus on the certification and on the training, but a lack of hands-on experience. And that continues even after the graduation, even well into the work experience. So my question to Zelalem is, it's good that the start of the training is initiated in the universities, but is there a way for the folks in the university to actually get hands-on experience? Because that usually tends to take a lot more months, years. Is there a way or the setup or I know that most of the universities have labs. When I was there, it tends to be a bit disorganized, lack of focus, and also there is a little bit of restriction, right? So you can see in more of the developed countries, most of the advanced technologies originates from dorm rooms because they had the infrastructure in the universities to try out their prototype, their ideas, right? So it doesn't have to be a big data center, but is there a kind of like a thinking behind this? Like maybe a graduation class can be 100, 200 folks, right? Maybe out of those 20 might be really interested to stay up late at night, try out their ideas. Is there the infrastructure, the setup conducive for that kind of situation?
Thank you for your question. So as he's responding, or anyone on the panel is responding, I want to take your last comments as far as R&D is concerned. The current situation on what needs to be done, probably when you answer, we will start from the far and then we'll come this way as we are closing.
Thank you. Actually, Robel raised the issue of quality. So the labs are not established as we went, and they are not providing practical training. So what we are planning to do for the futures, we have to really revise also the curriculum. The curriculum should have to be revised, and the advanced, we are dividing into three: the basic, the intermediate, and the advanced course. So the advanced course throughout the higher education should have to be revised to align with the recent technologies. So we are also providing the required laboratory infrastructure for them. Actually, we are differentiating the university. If you heard it recently, all the university should not provide all the courses. So they have to be differentiated with applied, basics, or comprehensive and research university. So during that time, we are planning to focus really on providing all the required infrastructure for them and revise the curriculum. Thank you.
All right. Dawit, R&D, and your last comments.
All right. So I think the NOCs are a very good example. I think it's good to follow, to learn from the Sudan Network Operator Group. I have similar experience in the NANOC, which is the equivalent in North America. And one of my responsibilities while I was at Cisco was providing BGP tutorial at NANOC sessions, and I used to do that every year. It is a good opportunity, and I think we need to take something similar, not every year, but on a regular basis. Probably some initiative that we can take is a joint effort to get a space, and then volunteers to do presentations in the spirit of internet, and then open it up for anybody who wants to join and provide different topics on training. That may be something that we can do.
All right, thank you. Yes, Bekele.
I think regarding R&D, I don't have too much to say, but as the point of to conclude our session, the point I want to make is when we talk about internet, so far Ethio Telecom is the center of the discussion because it was a monopoly. But now the market is being liberalized, and even with this liberalization, I see the core discussion is becoming the two additional operators. But I don't think that is the right discussion, because these additional operators are mainly mobile operators. Yes, the mobile technology is going to 5G and so on, and it's providing high bandwidth internet. But the main internet connectivity will be the other part, which is the wired, the fiber to the home, and also fiber to the curb, and then high capacity copper after that, wireless, fixed access wireless. There are a lot of internet last mile technologies, and there will be many small players to provide these services. So regardless of the big additional two operators plus Ethio Telecom, we can address the last mile with small players, mainly from local capacity, local companies, which will be transformed into ISPs and local data center providers, local hosting providers. That ecosystem should be developed and should not be demotivated because of the big players in the market. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I have to address something about the R&D. In Ethiopia, there is no R&D focusing on technology or tech-related issue. We have, I believe there are so many R&D related with agriculture and health. Somehow we have so many, under the Ethiopian Agricultural Research Institute, there are around 64 agricultural research and development center, and for health also, but for technology there is no. But we have to really use and exploit the opportunity that we have, the university. One of the main mission of the universities are to provide teaching, learning, research and community engagement. So their main objective also is research and development as an academic center. We have also the other advantage to use the university as R&D. There are also instructors, professor, which is related their field work. The department is ICT or engineering field, so they have to do really research as part of their commitment. So we can easily exploit them. There are also opportunity. You see, since we don't have any R&D like Silicon Valley or any other country experiences, so we can easily create the R&D center inside the university using the existing resources. The other issue, in the university, we have also a vice president for research and community service. So we will get more focus if you do our researches inside the university. There is also research directors which is focusing on this issue. The government also encouraged, provide 5% of the 5% of the university budget should have to go for research. So we are trying to explore. Most of the research are related with mainly basic research, but most of them are related with agriculture or health related issues. So almost we didn't get that much research on technology or these developments. So the main issue is our discussion, effective way of building network hardware and software locally within the country. I think we can start, or we believe the universities are the best place to develop this one. They have also enterprises, by the way. They have also incubation and innovation center ideally. For example, if you go to Addis University, they have incubation center and innovation hub. So whatever the idea you have, whether you are a researcher or from outside, you can bring your idea, you can develop inside the university using the university resource, and you can sell your product. So the university will take 50% or you will take, they will also fund. They have innovation and incubation center. So we have to really work on this research and design part, which we never deal about it in any of the forums. Thank you.
Okay, then.
I guess going last, try not to repeat too many points. For me personally, I gained all of my basic technical understanding from being very hands-on. And I think the comments and suggestions today about the workshops and the NOG formation would be something great to see, and I think that help drive some of the kind of training. The global community can support that, but the first steps, in my opinion, really need to be taken by in countries. So you want the locals to own and champion that kind of event, and then hopefully as development comes in the future, maybe we'll get community networks appear, and then that will give people ample opportunity to actually get hands-on. That's kind of how I started into networking, and as the market hopefully opens up to the competition, that'll be a good way to see it develop.
So thank you very much. A round of applause for our panelists. Thank you for your ideas and your contributions. So by a show of hands, can we probably say what are the three main areas where Ethiopia needs to focus? Because all the six, as far as the technical track is concerned, all the six are good areas where we need to focus on. But what are the three main ones that we need to focus on? I think let's think about that over lunch, and then come back with that when we come back. So think about three areas out of these six. Maybe I can repeat them quickly. Last mile infrastructure, core backbone, local IXP and regional global internet, data center and web hosting services, increasing skills through NOGs and any other forms of training people, and then R&D capabilities. Okay, depending on what has been discussed here, I personally have seen some of main areas, but go think about them. What we need as Ethiopia, we need to focus on for the time being, so that we put that foundation, and then probably other areas that are not focused for the time being will be focused on later on. Okay? So lunch is being served, I think, in the usual place. Let's think about those three main points, and then come back. When we come back, we will form small groups, and then each group will think of what are the three main recommendations for the three areas that we've identified. All right? Thank you for your attention, and bon appetit.